Look, there's been a lot of debate, and some of my peers have been putting out very sensationalist forecasts of a 40% fall in property prices and perhaps an 80% fall in the share prices for banks. What we've done is we've just had a look at the statistics, and all that matters is demand and supply. Demand is represented by household formation, and supply obviously represented by either commencements or approvals and so on. So when we look at household formation, it's fairly steady. It increases by about 1.2 or 1.5% per year, and at the moment it's about 130 to 145,000 household formations that occur. So that's your demand. Now, if we look at approvals, what we find is that we're actually exceeding that by about 90,000 a year, and we've been exceeding that by 90,000 a year for about 4 years. Now, of course, so we know we've got an oversupply, and the oversupply amounts to something like 2.5 years or thereabouts. But of course, approvals aren't always commenced. So you have approvals, but you don't always have commencement. So when we look at commencements, what we find is that we're also in oversupply, and we're producing something like 188,000 units or dwellings every single year. So we're exceeding by about 40,000. Again, we've got oversupply. Now, what does this actually mean? It means one of two things. We will have lower prices, or we will have a slump in construction. So one of those two things is going to happen over something like the next 12 or 24 months, and neither of them are good for property prices. One directly because of the oversupply, and one indirectly because of construction slumps. It's such a very big part of our economy that job losses would mean people can't meet their mortgages, and that could have pressure on house prices indirectly.
Yeah, so what sort of decline do you anticipate seeing?
It's really hard to predict. It's almost like asking you what day is it going to start. What's really interesting is that we already know that investment loan demand has slumped by about 15% or 14.6% year on year. So we already know demand is declining substantially. How that translates to prices depends on a whole bunch of factors, but I would say it's safe to guess at least 10%, and it's probably going to be a bit more than that.
And would we see this happening across the country?
Absolutely. It's already happening in some of the mining states. We're seeing it in Perth and WA. The period of time it takes to actually sell a property is much longer, and that's because vendors aren't willing to meet the new market. They're still looking at the past and wanting old prices that simply don't exist anymore.
So how should investors react?
Well, I think if they're thinking about buying a property right now, they should go and see an advisor, but it's perhaps not the best time, and it might make more sense to wait.
Roger Montgomery, good to see you once again. Thank you.